hospital video walls powered by sound and communications. SoundcomAV.com. Mike D, does the Manning Passing Academy start on Thursday?
Yes, it does. Sure does.
All right. So is it 2 days or 3, Mike D?
It starts Thursday and it ends Sunday morning.
Wow. I didn't realize it was that long. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What is the most competitive part of the deal? What is it at night at some point? What's the most competitive piece of the puzzle through the 3 days?
Most likely the air it out competition that they have on Friday. We do a 4-hour remote from there as it leads up to air it out, where they, compete in these little competitions about, how to hit moving targets and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's that becomes competitive, but it's competitive throughout the entire camp. I mean, that's the one thing that with this camp, it's not a recruiting camp, but it is a very competitive camp amongst the teenagers that are there. And then it becomes a competitive camp with the 40-something counselors, college quarterbacks that are there that sort of compete against one another too. So, yeah, that's a kind of game within inside the game there.
So y'all are there for 4 hours from the Manning Passing Academy on Friday.
Yeah, from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. So we catch the end of one practice and then the start of the 6 to 8 one. And then after the 8 o'clock practice is the air it out competition amongst the college quarterbacks.
How far is it from where you live, Mike D?
I would say maybe 15 minutes.
Wow. Okay. Do you expect Ed Ogeron to show up, or does he show up to those type camps?
He has not shown up to the camps. Ed would be much more involved with
the lineman camp
than say this, but this is mostly for the quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, and we've had a number of them throughout the year show up to the camp. Cooper Kupp was with the Rams, now with Seattle. He showed up here 3 straight years when he was in college. Now his grandfather actually played with Archie.
Oh, wow.
With the Saints. Yeah, Jake Kupp. He was one of the original members of the Saints. So Cooper showed up here. We've had Odell Beckham Jr., Jarvis Landry show up. Also DK Metcalf, A.J. Brown. So we've had a number of wide receivers, tight ends that'll show up to work with the wide receivers here.
Okay. Speaking of Odell, we're visiting with Mike Detillier. He's got his finger on the pulse of all things Louisiana and New Orleans sports. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance Guest Line. How would you describe Odell Beckham's professional career?
Wow, it started off on a wild ride, and then injuries certainly took its toll on him later on, where he wasn't quite the same player. But you couldn't ask for a better start for an NFL career than what happened with Odell. And he was a tremendously gifted athlete, underused at LSU because they didn't really throw the football a heck of a lot under Les Miles. And he was used a lot in the return game. But, man, once he hit the Giants, you just saw what type of impact player he was. Tremendous foot speed, elusiveness. He had great eye-hand coordination. And just, again, the injury started to take its toll on him And, he wasn't quite the same player as we saw later on, him playing, with the Rams. He was not the same guy. Same thing when he was with Baltimore. But, man, he started his career in big-time shape. And I think the same of Jarvis Landry. Jarvis put up huge numbers with both the Miami Dolphins and Cleveland Browns, and it fizzled out pretty quickly also. He wasn't the same player when the Saints brought him in.
Mike Detillier on the Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. Manning Passing Academy is Thursday through Sunday. In Thibodeau, right, Mike D?
Yeah, in Thibodeau at Nicholls State. Yep.
Okay. Let's switch gears to the Kansas City Chiefs. Well, as you size up the Chiefs, they've been the franchise the last several years. They've been in it. They've won it. They've lost it. But all they do is win. And they've got Spagnuolo and Mahomes and Reed and Beach and all this, they've got the alignment that we talk about from owner to GM to head coach to quarterback and Chris Jones and so on. Do you think they'll take a step back, or do you expect them to be a quote unquote, I don't know, top 3 dominant team in the NFL this year, Mike D?
I think they'll be a top 3 dominant team. They'll go as far as the offensive line will take them. I think that's the issue there. With a healthy Rashid Rice, with development of Xavier Worthy, I still believe that Travis Kelce has gas left in the tank as a receiver. They're going to be fine there. Their running game has always been solid. Defensively, they lose a few pieces here and there, but they have drafted extremely well. They're not going anywhere at all. Now, the division's gotten tougher.
True.
When you look at it, the Chargers are a better team today than they were a year ago when the season ended, so you have to deal with that. I think the Raiders are a better team today than they were a year ago. Sean Payton and the Broncos are a better team today than they were when they ended the season. But the Chiefs still have Mahomes, still have an explosive offense. You still have some star players on the defensive side of the football. They're not going anywhere. Nowhere.
It's not often you can point to a division and go, okay, Andy Reid, Hall of Famer, Jim Harbaugh, national championship coach at Michigan, took the 49ers to the Super Bowl. Sean Payton, I think he'll get in the Hall, Super Bowl winning coach for the Saints. Pete Carroll, he'll be in the Hall, Super Bowl winning and national championship coach. I mean, how many times have you been able to say that in the NFL with those 4 guys all in the same division, Mike D?
The only other time I can remember is in the 80s, NFC East, with Parcells in New York and Joe Gibbs in Washington and Jimmy Johnson, Dallas, and you had Buddy Ryan with the Eagles. I mean, that was, man, you talk about that was a difficult division. That was one difficult division to get out of. So that's the one time I can recall to see that much talent from a coaching standpoint and how they built their teams that would be similar to what you see out in the AFC West.
Wow. Andy Reid, Jim Harbaugh, Sean Payton, Pete Carroll, all in the same division. All have been to a Super Bowl. 3 of the 4 have won it, and Harbaugh won the title at Michigan, which was an incredible feat and accomplishment. Dang. Out of those 4 right now, out of those 4 teams, you would take the Chiefs roster overall over the other 3?
Yes, I would. In a heartbeat, I would take it. They got more experience. They got more overall talent. They got Mahomes. The other 3 teams don't. So we had a talk with Ryan Nielsen. Ryan's now special defensive consultant with the Buffalo Bills. He's with the Saints for a long time as their defensive line coach. And he left New Orleans to go to Atlanta to be their coordinator. And last year he was in Jacksonville. And he's now with Buffalo. He's like, man, I told him, I said, Coach, you got a shot. He said, yeah. He said, I got the quarterback. He said, I got the quarterback. He said, we got some pieces on defense that are impressive, but we got the quarterback. And that really matters in the NFL. So you can see where having that guy, and he's one of the elite, is going to make a difference. I think it comes down again to Kansas City or Buffalo getting in. It's going to be one of those two teams.
Mike Detillier on the Out of Bounds show and the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Would you still go with the Eagles as the number one roster in the NFC? And if so, who would have the second best roster in the NFC? Lions or someone else?
Before a month ago, I would have said Lions. But when you lose Frank Ragnow, who I think is one of the premier centers in pro football, it gives me kind of food for thought there, because you've lost your two coordinators already. You have some kind of repiecing of the roster, and then you lose a very important player up front in Ragnow, who I think he was one of the best in the game. It's just not next man up. That next man's not going to be in his zip code. Now, I've heard, Jared Goff talk about just how important he was in being able to pick up the blitz, calm everybody down in the huddle, getting that physicality that he brought to the table to the other members of the offensive line. That one's going to be tough. And in that division, you look at it, who comes out of there with, I think, not as good a Detroit team. I think a Green Bay team that is very good. The Vikings will go as far as J.J. McCarthy will take them. Mm-hmm. The wild card and all of that, Chicago, with Caleb Williams, and they've added some pieces to the puzzle there with Ben Johnson. That's a really, really tough division. So to answer your question, the number two team, which I would have easily said a month ago would have been Detroit, I'm not so sure that's not the LA Rams today. They gave the Eagles more trouble than anybody could have. Really, they did. They went toe to toe with Philly in a bad weather situation. You got an experienced quarterback in Matt Stafford. You got some young stars on offense. You bring in Devontae Adams. Sean McVay has done a fabulous job coaching that team. You have a really talented group of young men on the defensive side of football. So I'd probably go with the Rams there today, if you ask me, as the number two team out in the NFC. But it's close with them in the Detroit. Okay.
Yeah, boy, Shanahan and McVay were hot, and then they kind of cooled for a second. We'll see if they get that thing because they were young and in the same division and out on the West Coast and good looking and, had that swagger about them. And we focused on them there for a good 4 years or so. And then they kind of cooled because it shifted out to the East. And be interesting to see if Mike D, hits on something here that the Rams gave the Eagles all they wanted. Stafford still got some play. They signed Brock Purdy out at San Fran. And we'll see if the West Coast teams can make a run. Mike Detillier, WWL Radio TV New Orleans on the Out of Bounds show, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. Mike D, how did you get in the business? What was the first show you did or how did this all happen 35, 40 years ago for you?
Oh, wow. I got recommended, Hap Glaude was doing sports talk in New Orleans. I went to high school with. I was an engineer at that time. I was doing. I was doing engineering, and he gave Hap Glaude a call and said, I've heard all the guests you got on. I got somebody that knows every bit as much as what they do. And Hap gives me a call at about 11:30 one night. We start talking football, and he was like, "Kid, you're gonna come on the show tomorrow." And I'm like, "Okay."
Wow.
So that's how it started with me, and then I started doing the draft book the following year, the NFL draft book the following year. So yeah, it's kind of how it started with me, and you get in all kind of different ways. I didn't go to journalism school or go to school for writing or covering sports. I was in another profession, making pretty good money, and so I got approached a couple of times by different teams about, why don't you come scout for us? And we're impressed with what you do, and then you tell them how much you make, and they were like, okay, you best stick to what you're doing. Yeah, you're not making a lot of money on that scouting part of things. So, but yeah, that's pretty much, in a nutshell, kind of how it got started for me.
Okay, so when did you go full time, and what show was that?
Full time, I had actually retired from engineering, and a few years back, and I had swore I would never work again full time. I didn't mind doing shows here and there, but I wasn't going to work full time. And then, like anybody who's been retired for any length of time, you get bored. Uh, and I got a call during COVID year 2020 from WWL Radio, along with calls from a couple other stations, if I'd be interested in doing something full time. I said, well, let me think about that. And then after COVID passed in 2021, WWL initial offer was to do a show twice a week. And I said, yeah, I think I can handle that. So when we sat down to have a meeting about it, the 2 days a week turned into 4 days a week. And I'm like, this isn't what we talked about. And they had come up with the finances to make it work for 4 days, and we haggled over money for a while. I'm not saying a long period of time, but we haggled over money for a while, and they knew they were in competition, so it went sort of back and forth. And then finally, I started in 2021 full time, but I had no intentions of doing this full time. I was going to be a part-time guy. I was going to do second guest show on Mondays, maybe do LSU pregame on a Saturday, but I was going to have most of the week off. And it didn't work out that way. So I got an unhappy wife here who she ain't crazy about it, but whatever. She's gotten used to it.
Okay, so when did you start doing the Saints game day?
Saints game day, I did that literally before, I'm going to say 2002.
Okay.
It was me and Buddy Diliberto started it, Saints game day.
Okay.
We did it. We started in 2002. He called me out the blue and said, "There's any way we could get you to do at least a couple segments every Sunday?" And it's very early 2000s. So I'm taking a shot. It's 2002.
All right, how many hours are you on Saints game day?
Hour and a half.
Okay.
Pre-game. Hour and a half pre-game. I'll let Abear take care of the post-game. He can handle that post-game fine. But I've done some post-game when we've had some shuffling of the lineup. But hour and a half on pre-game.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen you out there doing pregame for the Saints, and so you've been doing that for quite a while. That's incredible. And
Yeah. LSU pregame has been since 06.
And how many hours is that? 2? 3?
It's 2 or 2.5. It depends on what time the game is.
Okay. Dang. So back to back, LSU Tigers pregame, Saints pregame. Nice. That's a cool story. Mike Detillier.
You jump from college football to the NFL very quickly.
Yeah.
With it, and I got neighbors of mine. That deal is they only got 2 seasons in the world. None of this spring, summer, winter, fall. It's LSU baseball, LSU football. That's all they want. That's all they want to talk about.
Oh man. Well, I know the celebration was happening Sunday and Monday for Jay Johnson and the LSU Tigers. They made it look easy in the championship series, and another big championship for that program. Number 8, I think that's right. Yeah, number 8. We'll see if Jay Johnson's pretty young. He may give Burtman a run for his money for those 5 titles, Mike D. We'll see.
Skip would like that. Skip never looks back. I mean, people realize Skip was, he was a pioneer in what he did in college baseball. Him and Ron Polk were the 2 guys. College baseball was looked at much differently when they, kind of hit the scene here. And then by the time they ended, everybody's becoming pretty competitive.
Yeah.
Now the SEC is more competitive, top to bottom, in baseball than it is in football.
I know, it's incredible. It is deeper. Mike D, enjoy the Manning Passing Academy. We can't wait for the stories next week. Thank you, my friend.
Thanks so much, Bo. Appreciate it.
He's the best. Mike Detillier, WWL Radio TV New Orleans. What a story. Pre-game LSU football, pre-game Saints, and then afternoon drive, full-time. Mike Detillier on the Out of Bounds Show. Brought to you by the Shrimp Po' Boy and Oyster Po' Boy at Martin's in Livingston, where 22 and 463 meet.